And I don't
the
think
Calvin Klein Warped
Yeah,
Tour.
I think we would just be talking about a huge mistake in the world now.
Welcome to Millennial Made. Very, very extremely excited for my guest today. We have Kevin Lyman, Kevin, just tell us about you. Who are you? Why would we, as millennials, know you? How have you changed our lives?
Well, I don't know if I've changed your lives, but from some of the better and good. But I was someone who, really didn't have, couldn't find out what I wanted to do in life. But I found out that I could produce events well in college. I had to raise some money for an underfunded ski club and team so we could go out and race. So I started throwing concerts in backyards of fraternity houses and things, and kind of got sucked into the LA music scene at a young age. Right. It was a really exciting time in LA, and I guess I was able to talk on the phone when everyone was skating or playing guitars. I was a guy who could talk on the phone,
right?
And started working in the production world, and that turned into 320 shows a year with my production company in Los Angeles. I was producing all these bands during a really exciting time in music in Los Angeles. And then, we kind of kept working. We were just talking about Lollapalooza. I was listening to one of your last episodes. You were there.
Yeah.
That it was actually a touring festival in 1991
Crazy,
where I got to go on the road with that tour.
Wow.
And then in 1995, I kind of saw this whole lifestyle of skateboarding and music and alternative music that I was working with in the clubs kind of bubbling, and overheard someone talk about the X Games. And I said, well, this could be something that maybe this gives an opportunity for us to do our own thing versus working for someone else. And I created something called the Warped Tour.
You created the Warped Tour.
Yes.
So that is epic.
That's what a lot of millenniums know. And later on, that turned into Taste of Chaos and the Mayhem Festival. And mostly lifestyle branded festivals.
That's great. And when did Warped Tour combine with Vans?
Vans came in my second year.
Oh, wow.
In 1995, I started it. We went out on the road with just a few bands that I knew locally. Those bands were Sublime and No Doubt and Seaweed and L7. And it was we were talking just with someone today, and he goes, that was very eclectic because you were always known as a punk rock tour. Mm-hmm. But in 1996, when we had bands like Pennywise and NoFX jump on the tour, that kind of legitimized it in the eyes of the punk world. And then Vans came in as my title sponsor.
Right.
But we went out, and it was something that I put my heart and soul into. Yes, you have to run your business ventures, but Warped was never destined solely to make money.
Right.
Our first ticket price was $15, and 25 years later, it was $45. And except for those Ticketmaster fees, which they go up every week, they're up.
It's like double the ticket price.
Yeah, they just keep sliding them in on you.
I know.
But we were out there at a very fair price, and I started learning how we were all supporting corporations in a way. Mm-hmm. So maybe I could go get some of their money to help put on a great show and help the music I love so much.
Wow, that's amazing. And can I ask, with the process of you were curating a vibe, like you're curating an aesthetic, you're curating an entire festival. How did you decide which musicians were going to be part of the festival? Not even just the headliners, but just all in all, like
I think I was very lucky in the sense that I'd like to pay homage to the past. So there was that punk roots, and I was talking about ska today with someone.
Oh my God, Five Iron Frenzy.
And it was like, those were things I grew up with, but I never felt I was curating a festival for myself. Mm-hmm. I was always, and people would give me crap sometimes for saying, oh, I was watching things.
Yeah.
Well, they go, don't you listen to music? I go, yeah, everyone listens. Yeah. We listen to music. Yeah. But I was watching, and I'd watch the face of the kids in the crowd singing those songs, whether it was A Day to Remember or Sleeping with Sirens or Pierce the Veil, as passionately in their heart as we were to punk rock music in the 80s and early 90s, or Jane's Addiction to those fans. Yeah. So I think the problem was, it was, so many people get locked in a time frame of music that they're passionate about. Right. That I just kind of looked at it that I was kind of curating a lifestyle for other people. Yeah. And it never really changed. Warped was always designed to feel like a backyard party in some ways.
Yeah, which it did.
Where, you said you came as a fan, but you felt you were part of the show in a way. All with the nonprofits, and everything was linked together, whether those sponsorships and all those activations. Yeah. That it was as much of a lifestyle fair as it was a straight music festival.
I think, to me, living my pop punk emo years in 2004, 2008, I we always liked the feeling of like discovering someone. You know, I feel like Warped Tour was that, as like we were going and seeing these new artists that, like my friend sent me, like I showed you earlier, he sent me a picture of the signed poster for My Chemical Romance before Helena even released, you know, and now that could be worth so much. But I think that's was kind of the beauty of Vans as well, as like we got, or of Warped Tour as well, as we got to see these artists before they
And that's what we did. You know, we
bank.
used the sponsorship dollars. You know, some people would say, "Oh, you're a corporate sellout." I'm going, I guess I was.
Yeah. And
but
also we have
you know,
an
we
economy
weren't putting those dollars all in our pockets.
Right.
We pumped it back into those side stages that were just as important. I think those side stages were so important. I think, to be honest, I think we might be missing that right now.
Yeah.
That the opportunity for these young bands, because if I didn't have those side stages, there wouldn't have been a spot for My Chemical Romance or Fall Out Boy in 2004. Oh my God. That I was able to walk over to that stage and watch those early adapters singing along, and I go, wait a second, that's what I want next year. That's going to be, if they're singing right now and there's 100 of them in front of the stage and they're that into this band, then you know what? We got to bring them in 2005, and that became our crazy year when, you know, all those bands broke into the mainstream.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, Fall Out Boy, local Chicago band.
Oh yeah,
hometown,
I mean,
hometown heroes.
You know, it flashes back to me when they played Chicago.
Oh yeah,
you know, just the crowd and you were probably in the middle of it all, singing your brains out with about 10, 15,000 other people.
I'm pretty sure Dance Dance was one of the songs that died on my MySpace playlist.
And then and then later on, you probably walked by another stage and saw a band that, oh my God, who's these?
Yeah.
And giving those bands that other opportunity. And that's what I hope and I think could be lacking in the music scene right now.
Yeah.
The chances for those young bands and talking to labels and talking to my friends, getting a band to break right now is really, really difficult. You know, we used to have a lot of avenues for that. And I think Warped Tour was that avenue for sense of discovery. It wasn't for everyone. Some people hated Warped Tour. People, you know, that's okay. But the people who got it, I feel really got it. And it was a show for real music fans. You know, you had to be there at 10, 11 in the morning, or you might miss your favorite band, because I wrote that schedule each day.
Yeah. Wow.
And, you know, when you had 90% of those fans in line at doors, and that Chicago show, those lines could get pretty long, but we worked really hard to get you guys into that show.
Yeah.
So you didn't, because if I didn't get you in and you missed your favorite band that might have gone on at 11:30, you were pissed.
Yeah,
and you guys let me know personally all about it.
I bet they did. But I think too, it's, you know, even with Lala, I was like, how easy is it now that I remember I was like, I needed to figure out the headliner. You can go on a website on your phone so easily, but even now I can just hop to Instagram, go to Lollapalooza and see who's on that day. It's like, oh, what time? But back then, it's just you went and you just enjoyed the music, you know, and
that first band, a lot of times I said the first band sometimes had the best show.
Yeah.
Because as soon as that first note on that stage came, everyone that was already in ran to that stage, because they hadn't quite figured out the schedule yet, that blow up we used to have and that kind of stuff. It took people, and I think that kind of thing for me was important because it created a communication amongst the community. And the fans, to me, the community was very, very important.
So you touched on it. Warped Tour hasn't been the only event tour that you've done.
No.
What, I guess, is something that many of us wouldn't recognize? I guess, you know, the hardships of putting on a production like that. I'm sure there's a lot of
it was year round.
Yeah.
I mean, we worked on it year round.
You said 320 days a year.
I mean, you know, Warped Tour was really like what we did, and the people that worked with me, I had a great crew of people, you know, through the years. You couldn't do it without them. They did it, and many times the people that worked on that tour each summer, they were working for big tours and big bands all around, and they would come back on Warped and work for less money because they wanted to be part of that. It took everyone stepping in to make that tour work.
Yeah, it's supporting art.
During the summer, to me, there's nothing like a Chicago rooftop grilling moment. Overlooking the skyline, I love to grill some nice asparagus. You know, you can throw some garlic bread on there, some Texas toast, and of course, the star of the show, the meat. Nothing to me like a nice filet cooked medium. Not medium rare, not medium well. Medium to me is absolutely perfect. And this summer, you can do the same. You could add some power players to your grilling lineup with ButcherBox. So ButcherBox is actually the subscription service, right, that delivers high quality meat and seafood right to your doorstep. In a time where we need convenience, this is exactly the thing I was looking for. You can choose from carefully selected portion of 100% grass-fed beef, free-range organic chicken, wild-caught seafood, and a lot more. Some of you might have seen I was in France earlier this summer, and obviously steak and French fries are huge there. and I wanted to recreate that moment at home. And I found a really nice cut of filet. I prepared it with some béarnaise, and can't even describe the flavors that melted on my tongue. It was so, so good. And I actually made it with for one of my friends, and they agree. And you could just tell that the quality of meat was very high quality. That's my favorite thing about Butcher Box is the quality of the meat that I'm receiving, but also the convenience, the fact that it arrives right to your doorstep. Every month, they ship a curated selection of high quality meat right to my home. Free shipping in the US, actually. And there's no antibiotics, no added hormones, which are really important, just taking care of your body and your overall well being, which we've talked before on the podcast. It's packed fresh and shipped frozen for convenience. So you can save time on your next grocery store trip, too. You can also customize your own box. There's tons of different ways to make this your own. Again, like I said, the meat is high quality and it's really good value. It's less than $6 per meal on average, which for a good high quality cut of meat cannot beat. So get summer sizzling started with this special Butcher Box deal for our listeners. Free bacon for life of your membership, plus $100 off. No problem with a little bacon in there. Sign up today at butcherbox.com/Rod and use bonus 100 to get 1 pack of free bacon in every box for the life of your membership, plus $100 off your first order. That's butcherbox.com/Rod and use code bonus 100 to claim this deal.
And then we were talking a little about before this, you hosted bowling nights.
Yeah, we had these bowling nights that we would do, and I always felt that, and this is what I teach at USC now. I teach my students.
So you're professor.
Yeah, full-time professor. This is my 5th year. I teach 5 classes. And
what classes?
I do marketing and branding. I do live event production. I have a fun class called Festival Design and Management class. Yeah. So I really enjoy it, and I do events with my students. Like we will have a mental health festival on campus this year, and we partner with Kalinda Bennington, Chester Bennington from Lincoln Park's wife. It was called the 320 Festival, and we've done it before. We had a pivot online during COVID, but it'll be a live event this year on campus. And then, so I try to show them that you could do good and do good business. I made a nice living. I know I'm never going to. It was better than what my options probably were in life, but I always felt that you can give back and put as much into that. So I was like you, probably very surprised. I was in class teaching, really. I was in class teaching, and all of a sudden my phone's blowing up. Yeah. When we were young. And I'm like, people are like, thought I must have been involved. And I'm like, what is this? I'm just surprised as you. And a few months
later. The parallel's insane.
Yeah, I mean, the bands are great. I got to work with almost all the bands on the bill, and the only bands we didn't work with were the bands that weren't formed a few years ago. Like new bands like the Linda Lindas are awesome, and they're playing that festival. But Amanda Moore, who used to work for me, now runs a lot of the residencies up in Las Vegas. She called me and said, "You got to do something. I mean, you got to be up here. It's important you do it." And I said, "Look, I don't want to just tag you into someone's festival. That's cool. It's a great event. It's awesome. All those bands are being able to get a nice payday up there. It's cool. But if I can think of something fun that would benefit, then let me figure it out." So we used to do these bowling tournaments where on a day off we would take over a bowling alley in Milwaukee or in Las Cruces, New Mexico, wherever we had that day off, and all the bands would come down and they bowl. And then we had the labels would come in, Fearless and Epitaph and Hopeless would get a lane, and then we would auction off spots for fans to bowl with their favorite bands. And I was like, so I going around, I go, I need that night before it. And they were going, can we give you a Wednesday? Can we give you? No, I want Friday night before. And so we have Brooklyn Bowl on October 21st. We have 32 lanes, and we have quite a few bands coming, and the industry is now buying lanes for charity. And then I wanted to team up on the music side. Medina Lake was a cool band, and they were a band that was bubbling out of the scene, out of Chicago. Awesome people, and due to a tragedy for the singer, he dedicated his life to charity. So I said, wouldn't it be cool to do a Strange 90s or Strange 80s show that night? So I called him up, and he's like, really? So we're doing a Strange 90s event where we have a great backing band, and it's got, I think, members of Amber Lynn and Neck Deep, and then singers are coming in from like Red Jumpsuit Apparatus and Bowling for Soup. Jared's going to be there. They'll sing their favorite 90s songs. And then it kind of jumped in. The Somerset said, hey, can we come up and do a set? Which, that'll be great. And now we have Sleeping with Sirens playing, and we have the Story of the Year playing. So it's turning into this and I'm now getting calls from everyone. Hey, Cal, can we be involved.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wish I had a parking lot. I'd put up another stage.
Yeah.
But
We're kinda, the pre-festival, a festival before the festival.
So we're kind of limited, but it's going to be awesome. It's a Brooklyn Bowl on October 21st, the night before the first weekend of When We Were Young.
Yeah.
And we kind of tie it in with them, and we're going to be raising money for Music Cares and Charity Bomb.
Which Music Cares is a great organization we were talking about.
Yeah. Music Cares is fantastic.
Yeah.
I was on the board of Music Cares for many years, and now I still throw a golf tournament once a year where all the industry comes out and supports it. And, they've helped a lot of artists.
Yeah, of course. And music, I think, is so important to us as consumers, but even young musicians out there. I was watching Green Day at Lollapalooza, actually, and they brought up this young girl. They were just like, is anyone in the crowd a guitarist? And they brought up this young girl. I'm like, this girl's not no Green Day, but she ripped a solo. It was just insane. And then they gave her the guitar, but I'm like, music transcends time, you know?
And I'm so glad I was good on the phone.
Yeah.
Because when you see how many great musicians out there, how hard it is to be a musician.
Right.
And with Charity Bomb and the mental health issues of our industry and as a society as a whole, I figure if I can kind of give back and do things like that, like our 320 festival in honor of Chester Bennington, maybe we can avoid some of the tragedies that have befallen so many of our artists.
Oh, I'm sure. So you brought up When We Were Young Fest. What was your reaction to that lineup? Even were you just?
I'm very, very. It's cool.
Yeah.
You know? Hey, look at those are all bands.
Yeah.
Those guys have good taste in music.
Like you said, most of them you worked with. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was great, and it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I'm still a fan of music. I'm more of a fan of music now than I was toward the end of booking Warped Tour.
Sure.
That was the problem when you love music as much as I did, and then all of a sudden you're just listening to music to book it. Like which festival does this fit on, or does it? You lose your, that's kind of your part of heart and soul is, and that's why I tell my students, we all get in the music industry because we love it, and so many people lose that focus at some point in their lives, and all they do is think about the dollars or what they can do.
Right.
That I just had to go recapture music. So now I'm jumping on a plane tonight. I said, head out fishing with some friends, and I've got a bunch of playlists together that I put together of all these, and there's so many good artists right now that I'll just pop it in and listen to it across the country tonight.
So you still listen to new artists?
Oh, yeah. And there's so many good artists out there right now.
Can I ask a question? I've always wondered this, and this might be more of a question for like a producer or something, but how do you know that an artist is going to break? Like, what is it like? Is it their audience? Is it something in their music? Well,
I always felt they had to be a good live.
Yeah.
I always wanted to see those people live. I guess towards the end, maybe around 2008, 2009, sometimes I would book off the music because I wasn't working in the clubs and the venues and didn't know the bands.
Yeah.
But, it's an innate thing. It was like with Katy Perry playing the Warped Tour. I watched that video, Jason Flom at her label showed me You're So Gay. Yeah. And I go, oh my God, she's got to come on Warped Tour.
Yeah,
and people are like, what? And I go, she's going to be great. And then she played a show in L.A. as a showcase. We did our kickoff party, and it was the first time she played with this band. I was a little worried about that one. Yeah. I think I was standing next to Haley Williams. And
oh my God,
did I? And then she pulled through.
Yeah.
You get a good gut feeling with it. And I think from working those 12 and a half years every night of the week, you got a pretty good feel of who's going to be able to carry it through a career.
And I think this When We Were Young Fest is coming at a good time because, first of all, I mean, Avril's obviously has the grasp on Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z now. I think she does such a good job with her social media, and even just like she has done stuff with Machine Gun Kelly and Olivia Rodrigo on stage, and so she's getting the buy-in of all different audiences.
She's got an awesome day-to-day manager. Yeah. Just so happens to be my daughter.
No way.
Yes, my daughter is the day-to-day manager for Avril Lavigne.
Yeah, that's amazing. She came to Lala. She came on stage with MGK.
I'm proud of my daughter.
Yeah.
Maybe she didn't follow my advice and went into the music industry. But we were just talking in my car. I was talking to some friends, and they say they see her out. She's out, and she loves music. And my daughters were lucky enough to work on. From 14 years old, they toured on Warped Tour with me and actually worked. They were hard workers. She ran all the nonprofit area for me out there. Worked with over 90 nonprofits, and my other daughter has a passion for environmental science and just graduated. And she starts a job on Monday as environmental specialist for Smart and Final Corporation.
Wow!
So it's kind of cool. It's that they felt that you're proud of your kids. But it was when you brought up Avril, I had to throw that in. She's doing a great job.
Glad you did. Yeah,
she's doing a great job. And I like that Avril, but people don't realize I tried to get Avril Lavigne to do the Warped Tour way back when.
Yeah.
She's got a new management team now.
Sure.
But I would when I go, she needs to come on Warped Tour and connect with this audience is really going to get her. But the old management was like, she's a pop star.
Yeah.
She's not going to go out there. And so right now it's being carried through, Machine Gun Kelly kind of started on Warped Tour as kind of when you see the hip hop phase, but his collaborations with Black Bear, Mod Sun was on Warped Tour, and Mod Sun's, it's kind of cool right now to kind of see what's going on.
I think just in general, like I've talked about it on this podcast of just like, 90s fashions trends coming back, but even just the pop punk craze and like emo boys and girls being a trend, I think is really interesting. Even like Olivia Rodrigo's whole album, obviously the comparison to Paramore, I know there's a lot with that, but just the buy-in that people have to this pop punk.
And I think it's a time, and it goes, everything cycles in a way.
Yeah, of course.
And I know that a lot of people, your age, are probably longing a little bit for those good times when you were just singing in a parking lot and there was no care in the world, except whether your mom was going to pick you up and be able to get through the traffic to pick you up at night.
I miss my old iPod sometimes.
And, I suspect, and I pretty much know that, that audience that's going to be at When We Were Young is your demo.
Yeah, of course.
They're traveling in. They're going to have the weekend up there. That's why it has to probably be one day because, you don't realize that you start getting tired after a 3-day festival. You were at Lollapalooza. How tired were you?
Exhausted. And that's why I'm like, I didn't even go sometimes till 3 p.m. because I was so tired.
But you can go hard for one day, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be there at the gates and be able to go for one day.
Yeah, I might need to scalp a ticket because it was impossible. The site crashed and they were trying to sell them.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be,
Yeah, we'll see.
Media mogul like yourself, you won't have any problem.
If When We Were Young is listening.
Yes, exactly.
I think, C3 does that fest too. Yeah. But so you spoke on it earlier. I know we were talking a little bit about you talk about this in your class. How do you feel like social media changed the face of music?
For good and for bad.
Yeah. I was going to ask, if you could give me a little bit of both.
For good, you could get your message out quicker. For bad, sometimes my mistake was, to be honest, thinking that everyone deserves a response.
Yeah.
I grew up in the world of kind of punk rock, and people could sit and talk. We'd talk through. We could sit around and have differing opinions and things, and listen.
Right.
Social media became a place where everyone had an opinion, and not sometimes an educated opinion.
Right.
And I felt that you could discuss things with people on the internet, and you found that you really couldn't. You can't debate. You can't educate. You really can't argue on the internet.
Yeah.
And people were there. So I think in some ways it's hurt music in a little bit of ways. I felt like some of the things in due process, being able to figure out what was going on. But I think, I was sitting up late at night on buses trying to answer every kid on Twitter and every Facebook post and realized that probably wasn't a healthy situation.
Yeah.
But, I hope that, as we know with social media, the cycle goes so quick.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid, and everyone's with TikTok, and I hear that labels, they sit there and they don't want to put out a single unless there's a TikTok to go with it.
Yeah.
Now, are we looking at these artists as long-term careers, or are they just a quick burn commodity?
Yeah.
And I hope that there will be bands that, like, you go Less Than Jake or Real Big Fish, even in that world, that have been around 30, 40 years. I'm hoping that some of these artists can have that longevity of a career, that they aren't expendable commodities to their labels.
Yeah, I think even that's so interesting bringing that up. I had an observation at Lollapalooza where I heard Heat Waves by Glass Animals. And I've heard that song on TikTok, but I didn't know who sang it. And then I was thinking back, I'm like, but then I knew every My Chemical Romance song in high school because they were my band that I listened to. But even now I'm finding that the new music I'm discovering, it's like singles or one song that I know and that I'm putting into a Spotify playlist instead of purchasing the whole CD and like having that specific album that you listen to.
We were talking about, we used to have a bucket. You used to look at an artist's career as a bucket, kind of.
Yeah.
And that bucket, you were trying to fill that bucket with so they could make a living in it.
Sure.
And when that bucket was albums and touring, that was pretty much the bucket.
Right.
And now that bucket has to be 10, 12 little things, throwing things into a bucket to build a career. Yeah. And does it last? There's going to be touring, but there's going to also be some of these. Cameo took off, and right. Streaming over the pandemic became very big, but then people have discarded it. Where I think there's a place in artists' careers for still great streaming events. NFTs we were talking about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Now, is it part of a career? It's not a get-rich-quick thing. Like there was a moment whenever of course, these small group of people make a lot. But is it something that we should probably be exploring for expanded fan clubs and how that could work? Yeah. Absolutely. But for the artist bucket, you have to look at it now. It's going to take 10, 12 things to make a career.
Yep.
So you have to learn about branding and partnerships. So that's what I spend a lot of times with my students, that it's how do you make that artist that well-rounded so they're not so dependent on one or two things for their livelihood.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So talking about artists' early careers, is there an artist specifically that you remember, and this is just me feeling nostalgic, that like you're proud of? Like you look at, I'm sure you're proud of all your artists, but like specifically, like, do you remember a moment of like saw someone, like you brought up Fall Out Boy, but you saw on Van's Warped Tour, or on Warped Tour, and you saw them when we were young?
Well, you did mention Haley Williams.
Yeah.
And I had another tour called Taste of Chaos that really focused on the Used and Mike Kim and that period of time.
Sure.
And I remember Olivia Tortella from a record label from Fueled by Ramen, and they called and said, "You got to check out this girl Haley Williams." And I said, "How am I going to check her out?" And I was starting Taste of Chaos in Florida, and her family was from down there. And her dad brought her in a station wagon and her guitar. And I had no idea I wanted to see her. And he said, "She'll come down and do a few songs." I said, "I'll find a place." And we had a second stage. Yeah. And she played right before Kill Switch Engage. Now, you're thinking Kill Switch Engage, pretty heavy band.
Yeah, yes.
And I had a side stage, and I found a spot for her to play a few songs. And I just watched her and go, that's where you see and go, okay, that's someone that we need to get behind.
Yeah.
You know, that she, young, playing like this crowd that didn't know who she was. Yeah. And then, watching her progress from the pink truck on the Girls Garage stage up to where she went.
Yeah. She just guested. She was the guest on a stage at Coachella. I forgot who she was on with,
and I think it's great. And, the timing of this, her comeback playing, and then with Mike Kim, with it being one of the first shows they put on sale, made When We Were Young what it was, know. So you look at it all the way through it, you just watch these people and playing maybe on a small stage and then coming back, and Davey Haggard from AFI and Gerard Way. I remember Gerard would be sitting backstage doing his artwork, just sitting on the ground by this tour bus, in 2005 when we were having this moment in time, and it's fun because we're gonna have Marco DeSantis from Sugar Cult's gonna come up and sing a song in Vegas. Yeah,
that'll be fun.
So we're kind of going back, and John Feldman's coming up. So I just
John Feldman.
It's nice to look and see this kind of a. But watching that breakout show, with Paris was one of those bands that, when I'd have and just hear that voice echoing across that Warped Tour parking lot, I go, wow, that's a big voice.
Oh my gosh,
great voice.
So talking about Warped Tour, talking about When We Were Young Fest, I've always wondered. It's because it's such a community. This music. Do they all party together? Like, do they all hang out outside?
We used to, because the Warped Tour was all about the barbecues at the end of the night. They're kind of famous, the barbecues. And that's what I created, was that barbecue was so people could intermingle. Because I don't think you see it. You were at these big giant festivals. The artists are kind of walled off. There's
I was in artist area for Lala. Yeah,
but there's not a lot of mingling amongst the artists.
They have their own.
They have their own little compounds. They have their own little pods, because festivals have become. When we used to do festivals early on, it was this time we all got together.
Yeah.
But now festivals are just part of the touring process.
Exactly.
So that sense of hanging out and doing things, really, that's what I really try to attempt to do with Warp. So not only would we have the bands hanging out at the end of the night, you would have your sponsors, because these sponsors wanted to meet the bands in a casual setting, and you didn't want it formal. So how did Vans become so popular with the bands? They'd be barbecuing backstage, and then they'd say, "Hey, come by our tent tomorrow. We'll hook you up with some shoes." And it was really about that kind of. And it was nice on that tour, because touring is a grind. Okay, touring is a grind. You're touring a lot of times with the same 12 people on a tour bus, or or in a van. And you're with those people all the time. And like any of us, if we're the same people all the time, we're going to grate on each other. But Warped Tour was one of those things like, oh, wow, I don't have to hang out with my band. I can run over here and meet the guys in Less Than Jake. Oh, wait, Ice-T's hanging out here? I want to go meet him today. And so it was, I think, almost a reprieve for bands a lot of times to socialize in a different way and hang out with different people. Because when you're touring, the glamour side of touring is very, very brief moments.
Yeah. It totally is. It's I think even I was watching I went to Lala last year, and then I had the opportunity to go to Governor Ball right after, a month after, and I think it was Megan Thee Stallion set. I was sitting there watching, like, this is the same set. I'm like, where I remember when I went to Warped Tour, is like just the excitement, and you could tell of the artists of being there and of just sharing that moment with other artists.
It'd be fun. Sometimes I'd be like, I was lucky enough to take artists fishing sometimes, and like I'm heading down to this fishing spot, and one of the captain who we're going with, I'd take on that day was the one day I'd leave the venue and take a band fishing. So I took Pepper fishing, but one time in Paramore, I knew that they needed a break because they were blowing up, too many demands on them for press and all the grind, and I said, guess what? We're going fishing.
Yeah.
They're like, what? And the manager was so pissed. He's like, I can't believe you're taking. I go, they need a day of fishing.
Yeah.
And then like they'd play last that day, and they'd be run up in their bathing suits and from fishing, and they'd be swimming.
Yeah.
It was just like they're kids, and that's what we try to do is we're still humans, and touring that I try to create the atmosphere that gave those moments that people felt like they were really still having a summer, that they were having whitewater rafting, or we'd get houseboats one day and
because it happens at a young age, too.
And you go out and you're out on the road. While your friends are going to the lake and swimming and everything like that, you're grinding it out, playing. And if you're not on a tour like with a lot of bands, you're playing in clubs and venues.
Yeah.
And people deserve to have a real life. And if you can blend some of that real life activity into what the touring schedule was, I think it humanized the whole factor. So we would do those days off where we would go help with flood cleanup. It all started with Katrina cleanup, and we did Sandy cleanup up in Jersey, and we would take a day where the whole family of Warped Tour would go and dedicate a day to charity.
Right.
And everyone would commune, and we'd barbecue and have fun, but we took a task, whether it was cleaning up the river in Nashville or working on the battlefields of Gettysburg. And then at the end of the day, it was like, oh, wow, this is what other people get to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I actually just had earlier was recording with a former child star. It's just like finding your inner child is so important. I feel like a lot of performers, you see that on stage too, with how much fun they're having. And even with Green Day, watching them at Lollapalooza, you were able to see that, like, they all looked at each other one moment and they smiled at each other. And then they're like, we're so happy to be back in Chicago, where one of the first places we toured, which was very cool.
A lot of the first Green Day shows. So.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking time to do this. And I know the Millennial audience thanks you. We appreciate everything you've done for us. You
reminded me. I better go get some tickets for that festival.
I know.
I don't think no one's hooked me up yet.
Yeah, we'll go in on it together.
Maybe come in as my +1.
Yeah. Amazing. All right. Well, Kevin, thank you so much. Are you on social media or anything, or something?
I'm starting again. I took a summer off.
Okay.
Like literally.
Sure.
But
you need to make a TikTok.
I'm really kind of boring on social media. It's Kevin Lyman at anything. So
Great.
It was like no creative names. My first email address was kevinwarped@aol.com. I just got rid of it.
My God.
And I'd take a lot of crap from millennials, like millennials, millennials.
Same thing, honestly.
And then I'd get a lot of crap, like, dude, like AOL, and I go, that kind of made you OG.
Yeah.
Towards the end, people were like, no way, you're OG internet.
Yeah. We were talking I was thinking, how cool would it be if you found this, and reason, because there's probably a lot of weirdos, but you found the people you were chatting with in AOL chat rooms or on AIM, and you met up at When We Were Young Fest. I think there's a lot.
Well, I look forward to seeing a lot of friends there, hopefully, and
you
know, just in a different way. I'm just going to go enjoy the music.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, if you guys like today's episode, please like and subscribe. Once again, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on. It's an honor to meet you and honor to have you on here. And if you have any other comments or questions for Kevin, comment below, or you can always DM me or Kevin probably.
You can hit me on,
apparently you respond to DMs.
I respond.
Awesome. All right. Well, everyone, have a great rest of your day, and thanks for listening.